Welcome back to the Boomerang podcast. I'm here with my very good friend, Lewis Herms of Screw Big Gov. Lewis, welcome to my show.
Oh, it's
What a
exciting to
turn of
be here,
events.
Matt. I
Yeah,
like
thanks for coming on.
the boomerang. I always say Trump has the golden boomerang, so it's awesome.
Have you ever seen his wall in his office? The boomerang on the wall in the frame?
No, really?
Yeah, he's got the boomerang on his wall in a case, in a glass case like this. And right next to it is the photo of him and JFK Jr.
Wow. So here's what's interesting is I was just talking to somebody this morning or texting is we are locked in a quantum entanglement for sure. So I
Yes,
never knew about the boomerang, and I've been saying for years that Trump has the golden boomerang. So don't worry about all the stuff you see, because it always goes right back to the deep state.
exactly.
And I never knew about that. Is it gold or is it wood?
It's wood, but there might be
Okay.
some gold on it. It's actually, I have a screenshot of it. I'll text it to you.
Oh, I would love it.
But
I would love it because I talk about the
I
golden
got it
boomerang.
I got it from the interview where the Wall Street Journal, that lady from the Wall Street Journal, came to his office and he's showing off, Shaq's big shoe, and he's showing off, the different Tom Brady's football helmet. And there's just one frame where you can actually see the boomerang on the wall with the photo of him and John Kennedy.
Very
And I screenshotted it right at that moment, and it's in my phone. I'll send it to you. But interesting. So, and I think there's some gematria that's tied to boomerang, but the numbers are
interesting.
not the numbers are not my lane.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I'm good with the numerology, but the gematria I think is intentionally confusing. That's why you have simple, you have Hebrew, you have English. You know
Right.
what I mean? And then
Right.
and then I have found that for every great thing that's said, you can find a counter narrative to it also. So that's why I kind of steer away from it
Me
myself.
too. Me too. Me too. I kind of leave it to better minds than mine. I mean,
Yeah,
even the
me too.
people that delve in it, it's like, I love Bo Pony and everything, but I mean, his prediction of dates and all that kind of stuff had just been completely off.
Yeah, I don't.
You know,
I
I don't want to be.
I've been after the truthers on these date things for a long time. I said if you can figure out the date, so can the bad guys. So let's get away from the dates.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I wanted people to kind of get to know you because we obviously work with you in your show, Screw Big Gov, right? Amazing show. I think you and Robert have some of the best commentary in the business. Where did you get your start? What's your background? You're a business guy.
Yeah. So I've it's always been a deal. So I literally when I was 11 years old, I had my first job. And it was I did two paper routes at one time. And back in the days, we actually delivered papers to houses, and it was crazy because that's very small and spindly for my age. So I'd have it was hard enough to do ride around with one paper route on your bike, much less two of them, right? Um, so I ended up convincing my mom every once in a while to drive me around like at least once or twice a week at 4:30 in the morning. So I've always had a knack for self-sufficiency, right? And then when I was at 14, I actually worked in a factory. I got a special permit, worked in a factory, and then I've worked, and I've had this thing about I've always and I give. By the way, I've done trainings, massive trainings to thousands of people for management skills and so on and so forth. And one thing I always tell them is I said, always assume that you're the position above one or two that you actually are. And I said, you'll naturally, now I didn't understand manifestation at the time. I do now,
Right.
but you'll naturally move yourself into that position. So that's what I did. So I always was promoted a lot. And then it became an issue that, oh, that next position is always ownership. So then I ended up, several years ago, running businesses for from here to now, all the way from marketing to a fairly successful construction company. When I say successful, I mean in sales. It actually ended up failing because of lawfare, believe it or not, from a cabal company. A cabal company sued us. It cost me, I had two partners and myself. It cost me my two partners because one had a heart attack, one just said, I'm retiring. And this company going after us, it cost us between sales and the actual expenses for the attorneys over $1 million. And this was pure lawfare. We were the only company that ever won against this company. And I guess we found out they're the largest of its type in the industry. I can't say their name because that's the only thing that we had to sign. Is I could tell the story, but I can't say their name because they've never lost a lawsuit. And they got their asses kicked by us because we proved everything. And it doesn't matter if the judge's cabal or not, he could not bypass the proof. In fact, I ended up pushing my attorney aside and saying, this is the way we need to do our case. So we ended up winning, but ultimately it destroyed our company. And that's what their goal is. They're a big, huge cabal company, right? It destroyed our company. And right when my wife and I were just about ready to pay off the final of the debt, and the company was valued about $2 million, I decided to do the truth tour, and then I said, okay, so we can either monetize from the company. Now we can actually get a paycheck, which would have been great, or we can sell it. We opted to sell it, but after doing Truth Tour 1 and Truth Tour 2, it completely devalued, and we ended up not being able to give the company away. So when people say, have you sacrificed for this patriot movement? I don't tell the story to many, but yeah, it cost my wife and I millions, and we were. I mean, the company was bankrupted. It was horrible for us financially, and she supported me through the Truth Tour movement, which people don't know. And finally, I have sponsors like you that help prop us up, and we can keep going. And we're doing a lot of good work. That's the short story. I know I told it long, but that's pretty much the short story that brought us here.
It's incredible, and I mean, I think the long term, I think your work in the truth community is going to pay off far greater than that company will. Just for the information.
Right. And it doesn't have to pay off from money wise. It pays off with our soul and what the integrity that we bring on to an afterlife. That's the way I look at it. With the work that we do now has almost nothing to do with the now. And it has everything to do with how we set ourselves up for eternity. That's the way I live my life. And just that's me, whatever it is.
What year did you start doing the truth tours?
What year? Well, couple of years ago, I started, I guess I hate to say my claim to fame, but what really kicked off what I do is I ended up doing my first film was released in, I believe it was July of 2020. So about 4 years ago. And it's called 2020 Vision. Actually, what's interesting enough is part of that film, a small portion of it is I proved JFK Jr. is alive, not because JFK Jr. is proven alive, but because I proved his wife was alive.
Right.
Right. And if she went down in the plane and she's still alive, clearly he is too, or should be. Right. But it was proved. And then I got a lot of fanfare for that, so on and so forth. And it moved into another one. So now I have over 20 films. The most popular one is one that nobody knows I did, which is ironic. And it's about deuterium. It's called Watch the Water, Q, Deuterium, and Trump. That's by far, it's got over 2.5 million views. And the reason why people don't know it is because it was taken off all my platforms immediately. I don't think I even got 85,000 views, and it was stolen over 30 times, but it went viral on everybody else's platform, which is great. You know, it is what it is, but everybody thinks my most popular movie was Cages, which I wish it was because that's on human trafficking. Right. But that's, I think that only has about 300,000 views.
Yeah. So on the subject of JFK Jr. being alive, I mean, you can clearly see at the Youngstown, Ohio rally in 2017 that's Carolyn Bessette.
That's exactly right.
Trump, right. Clear as day. I mean, there's no.
I did a facial recognition where you compare the two together, and the overlay is perfect.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. What do you think the purpose of, what do you think took place with John Kennedy? I mean, I'll give you my thought is that they were probably trying to kill him at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there was already attempts on his life several times that some made some media, some didn't. And I think about it. Okay. It's 1999. He was running for Senate in New York. Right. He probably would have run for president. Would you even have had an Iraq war? Would you even have had a 9/11 or a Afghani war or any of these things without somebody like him coming and speaking up saying, hey, it wasn't these guys, it was really our own government. What's kind of your take on why what really happened in that whole?
Well,
time period?
the narrative is interesting, even within the patriot community. Like you just said, the narrative was he was running for Senate. He really never officially did it. He kind of hinted at it. But if you go back to when his father was killed, or actually a few years before his father was killed, there's some great evidence that John F. Kennedy was trying to take down the deep state
Right.
back then, and a lot of it. And he had some generals on his side, and there's a lot of good
Eisenhower.
information. Yes.
Right.
So I believe that that started right around Kennedy, maybe even a little bit before. People were trying to figure this thing out. So I don't believe this was a Hillary versus Kennedy thing like everybody makes it out to be. This was a good guy versus deep state deal. And JFK Jr. was not able to be bought and sold, in my opinion. And he was Trump, who Trump is today. And he's not going to take any crap. He's gonna make this thing happen, and we're going to take down the deep state. So I know people like to position as Hillary Clinton. Well, that's just kind of the good guy, bad guy, myopic narrative. It literally, that was the most important race. If he would have put his hat in the ring officially, that could have been the end of the deep state at that time, and they knew it. So they had to take him out. And my belief system is, and this could be through things like Project Looking Glass or whatever, he found out about it, they knew about it, and I believe they faked his death. There's a lot of evidence to say that the quote, the death is faked. I'm assuming that it was him and his team that would have done that.
Do you think Trump was part of hiding him all this time?
I really do. I think so. If you want to look at more modern evidence, look at what happened is, I believe Jennifer Hudson didn't take the deal. So what happened is, as you know, in entertainment, these people, they become very successful very quickly, and then you can only move to the next level if you accept the deal, and that's literally sign
off your soul, right?
Sign your soul in name and blood, right? And many people, I believe, naively take the deal because they're like, this is all crap. It's not real, right? And then some of them go, well, this, they don't believe in the eternity. They believe in the now, right? Unfortunately, because we've been conditioned to, and they take the deal. Well, Jennifer Hudson came up in the ranks quick, really quick. In fact, she won an Academy Award, and I think
she ran to Trump.
Well, what's that?
She ran to Trump at Trump Tower in Chicago.
Right. So exactly what I was going to say. So the modern day version of Trump helping people is her, I believe it was her brother and her mom were murdered. Right. So that's the deal. That was the deal that she had to take. And if she didn't take it, they were going to do it anyways. Like we're going to show you. In fact, it was this is the way based on my study of the Freemasonry and all this satanic crap for cages. Here's the way this conversation usually goes. Okay, Jennifer, here's what we do. You need to sign your name, but you got to sell your soul, blah, blah, blah. We're going to make you mega this and da. And she's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do it. You go, no, just do it, but you're going to have to pick somebody that you want to kill. You want that to be your brother or your mom? She's like, are you crazy? I'm not doing either one of these. Go, well, if you don't do it, we're going to take them both out. And then we're going to come after you. Right. That's the way I believe these conversations happen. So after the death of her mom and her brother, Trump came to the rescue and put her up in Trump Tower. Right. And she has some time off in a way and to heal. And I believe to be protected from this. That's only my opinion. I have no factual evidence except for anecdotally and circumstantially, just based on my study. This is exactly the way the satanic cabal operates.
Outrageous. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole Junior thing is fascinating. It's I feel like a lot of people that took the jab and things like that, I think there's going to come a time where a lot of people die off, and they already are, arguably. Mm-hmm. But I think the country's going to need some encouragement at a certain point, and kind of an uplifting force at a time of just absolute ruin and destruction. What are your thoughts there? I mean, how do you see this playing out over the next,
Okay. So
you think we're close? Where are
if you
we at?
go back 4 years to my movie 2020 Vision, I talked specifically on about the you have your what are they called? In an archway, you have the pieces that hold it together, keystones.
Right.
And I said that JFK Jr. is it's so funny you say that. I said then he's the emotional keystone to this whole thing. So when it is time to pull everybody together, he's who they're going to bring out in public. And that's in my film from 4 years ago. So yes, I totally agree with you.
I kind of think about it. I'm like, okay, Trump got what 100,000 people at his rally in New Jersey the other day. What are those numbers going to look like if John F. Kennedy Jr. is there?
Yeah, millions, right? Do you remember when Martin Luther King spoke? Right, it was this. It will be a flood of people, and this is my biggest frustration with the Patriot movement now. And as you know, I'm working on something called the Unity Project, right? And the Unity Project has it's a multitude of phases I'm trying to bring together, not just patriots, but anybody that just wants to end human trafficking and wants a better place to live without this globalist control. So Unity Project is in multiple phases. I'll tell you what, if they can roll out JFK Jr. tomorrow, I would just stop the Unity Project because there wouldn't be any need for it. That's
Right.
how powerful I believe that would be.
What are your thoughts? I just got done interviewing Jeff Calhoun from Tactical Civics, as well as Bill Ogden. What do you see? Where do you see their work coming in? I mean, we see Tina Peters. I was kind of talking to him about it yesterday. We see Tina Peters, being persecuted, not even prosecuted, persecuted. And it would seem to me that this whole system of a jury of 12 could actually not only get her out of prison, but put the very people that are putting her in prison or trying to put them in prison.
Right.
What do you
So
do? You know? Yeah. Go ahead.
It's an interesting question, and this is where I tend to frustrate a lot of people. And I've had these talks with let's say just say the higher echelon of the sovereign movement, and they all of the common law is where we need to be, and clearly we're under corporate law right now. I believe where they go amiss is in two phases, and this is what I'm working on in the background with Remember Your Oath. Is I believe so. The one question I ask every one of these common law people is, I say, "Where's the teeth?" And they say, "What do you mean where the teeth is?" And I said, "Where's the teeth in what you're doing?" I said, "We can write great letters and we can put them in public, so on and so forth. But if the cabal's not held accountable, all of it is a moot point, and they're laughing us in the back rooms." And they go, "Well, you have a good point. What do you mean?" I go, "Well, in my opinion, the way this is going to work," and by the way, they ended up agreeing with me. 3 separate conversations on people, I'll just say way up there. I'm not putting out their names because they probably publicly don't want to tell me to say they agree with me, but they all agreed in the final. And I just put it this way. I said, "Here, let me ask you a question. Don't you think that we need to have a jail, a common law jail? And with that jail, it's going to have to be protected by sovereign patriots, probably on private land. We're going to have to put somebody through a grand jury, as you do, by the way, but nobody gets arrested. You have to put them through a grand jury. Then you have to pick them up and arrest them and put them in that jail. And then let's see what the reaction of the deep state is." I proclaim that they may not react at all because they know they have no rights if we did it the correct way. And therefore, that one model would perpetuate the United States, probably worldwide, within months, and we would take everything back. The challenge is all this beautiful writing that we see in regards to all this common law stuff, to me, is moot unless you have an enforcement arm. And that's where they all fall short. So to me, it's like getting up on a stage and proclaiming beautiful words, but if there's no action to be taken, it doesn't matter. So I've been asked what I propose, and I said what I would do right now, and this is what I'm working on. I guess I'll just put it out here. This is the first time I think I put it out in public. Is I believe that we should be operating both in the common and in the corporate system at the same time. So
Right.
what, for example, is all corporate legally bullshit that we do is we write in there common law language. And then we also have common law affidavits and writs and everything else that goes simultaneously at the same time. So when you serve people, you're serving them in both. And that will be the transition over to common law, right? And I believe this is really, really important. We have a huge clue, and I'm surprised that nobody has talked about this. President Trump has said for years, what? We must do this legally and lawfully. There. That's the answer right there. Is what I'm talking about is legally and lawfully. And I believe he's been giving us the script on what to do. So this is what I propose, and this is some of the stuff I'm working on with Freedom in Action and Remember Your Oath, is to try to work with these common law people, because I think they're on the right track, but there's a transitional phase that I think we need to not only pull everything over there, but I also to awaken the normies that still think that the regular legal system is the way to go. So you pose the language in there and you start pulling them over to your side. So it's a longer process. I understand that, but the reality is if then you can have your structure of grand juries and a jail with teeth, I think we're going to see a lot of movement in that.
Interesting. That's a very interesting take. Black Swan events. You're talking about a Black Swan event this summer. What are your opinions, your thoughts, your predictions?
Okay, so I've only made one prediction ever, and I was wrong. And it was based on markers. I always look at markers. So it was I said in September, October of 2022, we were going to have a huge financial crash. And ultimately, that's going to be the Great Awakening event, the single biggest event at the beginning of this. And the reason why I said that is because I believe, especially Americans, are inherently selfish. And until it hits them at home, they're not going to do anything about it. Right. So, and based on all the markers, that's exactly when historically the stock market should have crashed. Silver should have went through the roof. Unemployment should have went up. The dollar should have devalued. The real estate should have absolutely crashed. All of that should have happened in September, October of 2022, based on historical markers. And then I was wrong because there's something I did not take into account. And that's all the money that was infused based on COVID. So what we ended up having is a massive transition of wealth. And when I say transition of wealth, it went in two ways. It went the middle class either went to poverty or to pretty much middle upper class. There's virtually no middle class right now. And if you were middle upper class, you were somehow connected to the medical industry or something that profited based on COVID. I believe that's what's artificially kept us afloat for these last 2 years. So that's what I still think is the Black Swan event, is I believe it's going to go, we're going to have a massive market crash, real estate, so on and so forth. I can't predict when. To me, it feels like it's right on the edge, because there's no more influx of COVID money. They're going to try to roll out Disease X, and it's going to go nowhere. So I believe it's going to be virtually any week now, but we'll see.
Do you think I'd like your thoughts on the 2024 election. I mean, do you think I think the Democrats are not going to run Biden. I think they're going to throw somebody in there. What are your thoughts there?
Well, yeah, if we even get to the 2024 election. So
I don't think we're going to have one. That's my opinion, but
I don't either. I don't either. So I say, but let's prepare as if we are, because we don't want to. Don't want to have our backs against the wall. Okay, so but that being said, though, so my belief is, and this is based on circumstantial evidence. Their guy is Gavin Newsom of California, and here's why. If you look at the last 2 years of Gavin Newsom has spent more time traveling and visiting deep state dignitaries around the world than he has in California. That's a huge clue. Another clue is, I believe it was 2022, the DNC changed their rules. So Biden can get the nomination and then resign, and then a committee of 12 from the
Okay.
DNC
That's how they're doing it.
can select their guy, which would be Gavin Newsom, based on his travels and the people that he's talking to. It seemed very clear to me that's their goal.
You're the first person that's identified that, because I was wondering how they could even do that.
Yeah, it was a rule
Right.
change, and it. By the way, so that's not We the People, is it?
No.
12 people get together and they say, "Hey, this is the guy that we want." Boom.
Yeah. Kind of shows you what they had in store for us with elections, right? If Trump were in this thing, they would just do this any year they wanted to. They just throw in whoever they want. Yeah, because I heard the rumors about Michelle Obama, and I never bought into it because, I mean, think about the field day Trump would have with Michelle Obama.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it. And I think there's even Democrats, and I know there are right now, questioning her sexuality, his sexuality. I think they believe that, because now if you look at the Democrats, they're defending. So if somebody says Big Mike, instead of saying that's ludicrous or you're crazy, of course Michelle Obama's a woman. Now his supporters, are saying, well, that's great that the first transgender would be in office, right? That's their go-to line now. I'm like,
right.
Okay, so there's no way, because then what happens is Trump, at minimum, he would say this is going to be Obama 2, which completely destroyed the company. I mean, the country, right? It is the company, actually.
The company, yeah, right.
It completely destroyed the country, and then President Trump would never have to say it, but everybody around him would constantly say, well, they lied about this guy's sexuality. How can you trust him with anything? Right. So I think it would be dead in the water before it started. So I do not think it would be Michelle Obama, in my opinion.
I always kind of laugh about it. And I thought about it. I'm like, what would Trump do? He'd probably make her provide a birth certificate.
How about both of them? Yeah, you and your husband provide a birth certificate, and then, okay, if you don't want to do that, we understand. Let's take a DNA test between your daughters and the real people that fathered and mothered your daughters.
I mean, they look identical. They're spitting images of their parents. I mean,
it's crazy.
And it's messed up because, these girls have probably gone through a lot. I mean, some of the stuff I've heard about Barack Obama is absolutely hideous.
Well, yeah. And this is where I get in a lot of trouble, is a lot of these baddies that you see, I kind of empathize with some of them. So, for example, so we know the Obama girls, right, were put in a position, and I believe they're absolute puppets and probably afraid for their life, just like Ashley Biden is, just like Chelsea Clinton will be. So when I know people get very angry at them and so on and so forth, but we all have to understand, from birth, they have been groomed into this, right? Now, I'm hoping they don't do the nefarious actions in regarding children and human sacrifice, because then there is no what's the word I'm looking for? I have no good thoughts for them if that's to happen. But the reality is, a lot of these are put in this really unenviable position, and I don't know what Chelsea Clinton's deeds are. I don't know what the Obama's girls' deeds are, or Ashley Biden, but I can tell you for sure that they are 100% controlled to this day. Did we lose you? Hello, hello. Looks like we will be editing this video. There we go.
There we go. My camera just went out, so I'm just going to finish like this.
No problem. We reverse, guys. You're in the middle of Freemasonry right now. We just reversed everything on you.
You get a better view of the Magador anyway.
Yes,
you get a better view. I don't know what the hell happened there. Something. We don't have Bill in the studio. He's doing it remotely, but yeah, I mean, I think the whole the whole Obama charade. You know, it's going to turn out to be one big lie. I've heard about his upbringing, about how he was, put through college by Al Dweeb, right? Prince Al Dweeb.
Yep.
That guy's a real scumbag. I heard he was actually passed around as a child to different men.
Yeah, I think
that's the
Bushes would be included.
Oh yeah, I've heard about H.W. Bush, about how he was with allegedly little boys, and the little boy tried to escape, and Bush went and got a shotgun and went hunting. Like that's the reality of these people, and I think that type of information's way out. But what are your thoughts, Lewis, on the 2024 election? Like, how do you see it? How do you see it playing out? I mean, are they going to just, like, what reasoning would they give for not having an election? What would they actually do?
So I think it can go either way. And one of the reasons why I don't think the 2024 election will happen is because I think there's motivation from the good guys and the bad guys to stop the election. So if the deep state stops the election, it's going to be through either some fake pandemic again, some climate fake crisis, or World War III. And they're working on all three a lot right now. We know they're trying to roll out Disease X. That's a fact. We know that weather manipulation and the predictive programming in the media for weather events are through the roof. And we also know, obviously, they're trying to start a war with Russia. That one didn't work too well. So they got the Israel-Hamas thing going, and trying to drag all the Middle East in there so they can pick a side publicly, and now start World War III. By the War Powers Act and the National Security the National Security Doctrine, both allow you to shut down elections if that's the case. So right. I absolutely believe that's the intent of the deep state. Now, what if the good guys preempted that because they have more control in the Supreme Court than we think they do, and they got the information to go public that the election was completely out, Trump goes back in, and it doesn't even need to be President Trump, by the way. I think people are investing too much emotion in President Trump. It needs to be somebody that's willing to take down the deep state. He's a conduit to that. So, and he's the face of it. He may not even be the leader. And I know this upsets people when I say this, but there's a whole team in generals behind him that have created this plan, and he's a conduit for it. Right. So yeah, exactly. The Q team. So when we say President Trump is playing 5D chess, his team's playing 5D chess, and he's the one making the moves on the board. That's the reality of it. Based on something Juan said to me a long time ago, I'm sure people know who when I say Juan, I'm talking about Juan O'Savin. Yeah. He said to him something about, and this was 4 years ago, because he just watched two of my films. 2020 Vision was one of them, and I didn't know him, and he gave me a call because he said, in fact, he said that film is years ahead of its time. Put it out later is what he told me at the time. And somebody else told me that's of prominence, I guess I would say the same thing. So that's interesting. They wouldn't tell me what it is, so I have no idea what it is in that film because it covered so much, right? But that being said, so one thing he said, our first conversation was 4.5 hours, and part of it was private, part of it was recorded. But he said that the good guys are running millions of scenarios, sometimes within minutes, through a better than quantum computer in order to make their decisions on where they go. And at the time I was like, well, I don't like that. Right. And because that's taken away from our discernment. Right. And our discernment is where we need to go. And then so over years, took me 2 years to come to the conclusion. I go, wait a second. He wasn't talking about a better than quantum computer. And by the way, Juan and all these other guys, it's all a psyop on top of a psyop on top of a psyop. So we just have to be very clear about that. And no offense to him, I've told him to his face, and he won't agree or disagree, which tells me it's a psyop on top of a psyop on top of a psyop. So, but here's what's interesting is, then it hit me. I'm like, oh, what if he was talking about Project Looking Glass?
Right.
What if it had nothing to do with running a million scenarios? What if they're looking into the future and saying, okay, we need to go this direction. Oh, look at how that changes. If we go this direction, how does that change?
Right.
And because I understand that they couldn't disclose that type of information to little old me, right? So I had to put the things together. But you know what it did, Matt, is it gave me solace. I then took a deep breath. I'm like, okay, well, if that's the way they're doing it, I said I can get behind that, because there's still some discernment involved, right? And it could be heartfelt. It's not a computer directing our moves. So that felt a lot better. And I'm hoping that's what we're doing, because I cannot get behind an AI computer making the decisions and us following suit. That does not work for me.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that the Terminator movies literally nailed it. Just crazy. What is your take on, like, what I know what Project Looking Glass is? I have my own view on it. I'd love to hear your description of it.
And I don't know much about it. You probably know a lot more about it than me. All I know is they can look into the future on certain scenarios, right? And I'm under the understanding that they're not physically time traveling to change anything, but they're peeking into the future.
Right.
And they have to make different decisions here, probably on a multitude of timelines, to test their theories. It would be my theory of the way it works. Other than that, I don't have much knowledge about it at all.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much my basic theory. Is that they can go into the future and peek into the future to some extent. And then I heard leading up to, they couldn't see past, years ago when they had this technology, they couldn't see past like 2017 or something like that. Like they ran into a block.
Well, what I believe it was is, I think so the bad guys and the good guys, and the reason why I say bad guys and good guys, because I believe that we, the people, are the white hats. I actually believe the guys that we think are good guys are gray hats, because they have to make some really hard decisions and people will die because of it. I don't think they're as good as you might think in order to get the world done and get the work done. Kind of like special forces have to make some very hard decisions in order to get the work done. So they're not as pure as you may think, and you can't have those people in the position. So that being said, is in regards to this, I totally lost my train of thought, which is awesome. Where are we going with this?
We're talking about Project Looking Glass and how you they saw the block in 2017. They couldn't see.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So what I believe happened is, again, the good guys and the bad guys both had this technology.
Right.
And the bad guys couldn't see anything favorable post 2012. It's like every scenario they ran post 2012 ended up eventually in their demise. Is what the reading the tea leaves and from my research, and I could be completely wrong, by the way, but that's what it looks like. Is the good guys couldn't see a favorable outcome for them. The bad guys could, and they're kind of sticking to the script in order to take the good guys down, is what it appears to be. If that's the case, I think this is where we need to take a deep breath and step back and go, this isn't about good guys, bad guys, gray hats, white hats. This is about God, and this is about evil. And God ultimately is making the final decision.
Yeah, I think what gives credibility, totally agree. What I think gives a lot of credibility to this whole idea of time travel is Nikola Tesla and his connection to John Trump. That when Tesla was, I guess he was arrested and he had all his work stolen from him, that those findings were actually given to John Trump, who was a physicist at MIT.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on some of that history?
Yeah, well, I actually ended up by accident doing a video. I think it was called Time Travel Proved. And it was based on these freaking weird downloads that I was getting, and over, and I'm writing them down. And I connected it to numerology, and I used the gematria apparatus of numbers, not the words that they would attach to it, but the
Right.
numbers, to
Right.
prove that mathematically what just happened with me was impossible. And the end result kept coming back down to time travel. I mean, and Ingersoll Lockwood was involved in that. Barron Trump was involved in that. Christ was involved in that. I mean, many names, and of course, President Trump and the Q team. So I also came up, and that's when I surmised that the most important number isn't 17, it may be 18, and that's Q plus.
Well, 18 is Q plus is 18 Q plus? I thought 18 was R.
R is 18, which would be
R,
Q,
yeah.
which would be the second one. I always said Q, the plus was the one number after 17.
Got it. So does that lead you to believe that maybe Junior becomes president?
Eventually. Could be. If we even have a president, it may be called something different completely.
Yeah, because when this country was founded, you had what, 4 or 5 people in the federal government?
That's right.
I
Exactly.
mean, it's like we're all sitting here, including myself. We've been sitting here for years like, yeah, we got to win the presidency. And it's like, I don't think that's really that important. If you have the right structure if you have the structure of the country that you're supposed to have, being your local sheriff is a bigger deal than being the president.
100%. I speak on this all the time. And I said, if we were running the way the republic, that's the words we should be using, the way the republic should be run, you would see the president only in these cases when there's a war, when there's a national emergency, right? Or when he does the State of the Union address. That's primarily the only time that you would even see or hear of the president, because that's his job, right? But what happens is the deep state is completely, and I do say the deep state, and this includes most Republicans and virtually all Democrats, have flipped this on its head, and they put all the focus on the president of the United States, which is exactly opposite. That's Freemasonry 101 right there, Matt. That's exactly opposite of where it's supposed to be. None of the attention is supposed to be on the president. The president is almost nothing, right? He's a conduit for making war decisions or national emergency decisions, and then he'll tell us once a year how it's going. That's literally
you were the one who said it. You're like, yeah, he's supposed to come out once a year to show his head, like one time. Like that's it.
That's it. And so
that's it. And now we've armed him with executive orders and all these things that these presidents, it's like you said, it's just the whole idea of this country just turned on its head. It's been inverted completely.
It's completely inverted. But President Trump is playing into that.
Right.
So
right.
He's
That's
using all of this against him. So he's doing these massive rallies, and he's getting all this media attention, and he's using the executive orders. He's like, and that's why I know there's a huge team behind him. We can call it the Q team, the generals, whatever we want to label it. There's a huge team behind him directing the show. I'm not saying he's a puppet by any means. He's brilliant, but they're directing the show, and it has to go in a certain direction. And they're using, in my opinion, all the tools of the deep state. And this is why I get in this discussion. People are so upset about many truthers right now, and maybe they're controlled opposition. Okay. So for years, I've literally taught on controlled opposition. Here's the markers to look for. This is what controlled opposition looks for. And I get, guess what, guys? It doesn't matter. Like, what do you mean? You're telling us they could be controlled op? I go, no, I'm giving you markers. You're telling you they may be controlled op.
Right.
I'd say, but here's the key. Even if they're controlled op, you can use it to your advantage. Take the piece of the information that resonates with you and put that out. And it's the same thing what I believe the good guys are doing to the deep state. They're using the internet now to their advantage. They're using the media to their advantage. They're using these rallies. They're using all the lawfare and legal stuff to their advantage. And that's what we need to do, because what the deep state is brilliant at is organizing and putting all the pressure on the head of a pin to get the job done.
Right.
So let's just use the same tactics they do without the satanic element to it. And they're done, because you know what we have that they don't have? We know how to manifest.
Right.
And we have discernment. They don't know how to do that. That's why they use we the people for that.
And it's like what we also have is like, you think of all these idiots who've taken bribes, and like, what are you going to do with that money? What kind of country are you going to have that money in, you idiot? You moron. Like, what are you going to do with all that money? It's going to be A, it's going to be worthless, and B, you're going to have somebody right behind ready to shoot you in the back of the head to take whatever it is you have.
That's exactly right.
These people, as Q would say, these people are stupid. Like, I think Stormy Daniels is working with Trump. It wouldn't surprise me if Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump were best friends.
Yeah, and add AOC to the list.
AOC, she's absolutely, I've thought about that for your AOC. Who else? Michael Cohen, the lawyer.
Yeah, I believe so. And because there's no attorney that's stupid.
It's ridiculous, and everybody's seeing how just ridiculous. Like I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, I can't take. Like, it's funny. Like, I guess maybe this is what they meant by enjoy the show, because I'm enjoying the show. This is fun.
I actually think Judge Ergonon, I believe that's his name, could be also working with the Q team.
Could be.
They're just so blatantly obvious in some of these things. Like so I take it. Here's what gives me happiness. And this is what I try to tell my audience all the time, because my audience, I get it. They get frustrated. They ride that roller coaster, blah, 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 up and down and up and down. There's even some very popular podcasters that I've told them, like, don't ride the roller coaster. Trust me. Take a deep breath. Let's look at for what things are. I go, okay, so you and I can go down the whole Q white hat thing. It's all controlled. It's all a movie. It's all fantastic. I said, but if you don't want to go down there, let's just look from a pragmatic standpoint, right? The deep state, if pretend all that other stuff doesn't exist, clearly they're desperate, because just today, and I'm going to report on that, King Charles portrait came out, and if you mirror it, it's freaking Baphomet. It's so obvious. And there's a portrait of Obama, the same thing, and it's Baphomet. And it's like they're getting so desperate that they're throwing everything at worst case scenario, their backs are against the wall and they're throwing everything at, because we the people are winning. That's the worst case scenario. So it's like we just have to write it out for a while. And I know there's a lot of pain in it, but if we would look into that attorney that I talked about. So I love math, and I have to quantify things. So what I do is I look at eternity as 1,000,000 years. Let's say our life right now is 100 years. But what we do now earns how we live throughout the eternity. Right. This is why it's so important to do the right thing now and be calm about it. Take a deep breath and know it's going to be all right, because we're pushing for the future. So our work now is ultimately not just for us, but of course the kids and the kids of the kids and the kids of the kids, generational, down so many years or decades or centuries and maybe millennium. So our work now is extraordinarily important, and we cannot do this in a panic mode. We have to take a deep breath. We have to be calm, and we all have to be personal ninjas in order to get this done, but we will get it done.
Well said. Well said. My last question, gold and silver. We obviously work together. You obviously promote Midas. What are your thoughts on what the new monetary system looks like? Now I'm asking you on my show.
Well, I've thought for a while that the only way that a real monetary system would work long term, and when I mean for like 1,000 years, right, is it would have to be at minimum attached to earthly goods, and that would be gold, silver, platinum, maybe even oil. You know what I mean? It would have to be attached.
I'm talking about that. Yep.
And that's the only way I think it could ever work. And that's exactly opposite, which is Freemason again with the fiat system, right? Because our current currency is not attached to anything except air, and they can print it anytime they want to. And the key is, I really believe the key to the whole Nasara talk, and that's a deeper conversation I'd love to have sometime, but the whole key to the Nasara talk is it's putting everything on a level playing field.
Right.
How do you do that? If money is valued based on gold and silver, let's just use those two things, immediately everything gets on a level playing field.
Exactly.
Worldwide. And everything becomes a lot easier. And I say often, and I guess we can leave with this, is simple is God's work. If it's messy, it's somebody else.
Great. That's a great quote. It's a great quote. Interesting. Well, where can people find you, Lewis?
Well, it's hard. For example, I just got banned on TikTok again this week. You know what I mean? I had a viral video that, God forbid, I was talking about Israel and Palestine, and from a different perspective. So what we've done is we've created a website that's pretty robust. It's called screwbiggov.com, screwbiggov.com. And you can find virtually every documentary and film. I think we have over 20 there. You can find all my social media links, and we disappear all the time. Currently, we're on Rumble doing news a couple days a week on my Screw Big Gov channel. But in case any of that disappears, it won't matter, because you go to screwbiggov.com, and all the work we do, and we have a nice, beautiful team that does work through Freedom in Action, Remember Your Oath, and the films. You can find us all right there.
Awesome. And I just also want to say thank you for coming on. We're going to send you one of these as, you know, a bonus for coming on the show. We're sending these out to some recent guests. That's Dylan Mulvaney.
He's looking hot.
Hot, right? Hot stuff.
Yeah.
We have a guy in Man Packs. Oh, this is a good one, man. You're going to love this. Just a reminder of how ridiculous things have gotten. A little memento that we'll look back in some years. We have a guy, Alan Masterson, out in New Jersey, who makes these dolls. He's super incredible. So if you know anybody that wants one, I could put him in touch.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, for sure. See, at first thought, I'm thinking target practice. And then I go, well, no, that's a collector's item. I don't want to do that.
Collector item.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Great. Appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Lewis. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.